Let's go ahead and jump into this discussion because clearly the big news of the day, the drug makers Pfizer and BioNTech have indicated that their COVID-19 vaccine is more than 90% effective. Now, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves here. This could mean a lot of different things, but it really does seem at the very core, it marks a major step in the right direction in this battle against COVID-19. And clearly, Wall Street is loving the news. Stocks across the board are feeling pretty good today, with the exception of the stay-at-home stocks. Of course, we'll get to those. But Matt, one area of the market where we're seeing a big reaction in it's something we talk a lot about here on the show. It's in real estate investment trusts, right? Those REITs that we talk about a lot. Talk to us a little bit about why you think the REIT segment of the market is receiving this news so positively.
Yeah, well, you got to remember there are many different subsectors of REITs that have kind of different, dynamics here. So there are some stay-at-home REITs, like think of the data center REITs and things like that, and they're kind of not doing that great today. But most REITs own commercial properties that depend on people being able and willing to go places.
Yeah.
So when you look at just some of these numbers, and these were at 12:30, so they might have changed by the time you are hearing this. Just some of the favorite ones we talk about on here. Empire State, the company that owns the Empire State Building, is up 30% today. Tanger Outlets that we talk about, they're up 23% today. Simon Property Group, the biggest mall REIT, is up 26%. EPR Properties, which owns about half of its portfolio as movie theaters, is up 41% today alone.
Yeah, that was the one I was going to I wanted to talk with you a little bit more about. I'll let you finish, but EPR, that was one that struck me as standing out.
Yeah, and I was going to, Welltower, which is a healthcare REIT that owns a lot of senior housing, which for obvious reasons, that hasn't been doing well, is up 17% today. And last one, a lot of people are worried that people are going to leave cities if this pandemic keeps going. And Avalon Bay, the big apartment REIT that owns a lot of urban apartment buildings, is up 12% today. So, kind of across the board with all the kind of reopening REITs are doing phenomenally well today.
Yeah, and you're talking about people leaving the cities. You're talking about sort of that bigger picture idea that with going more towards a remote workforce, or at least companies adopting the mindset that their employees can work offsite, perhaps permanently in many cases. I mean, that's going to maybe reduce the demand for living in these big cities. You talk about moving out towards the suburbs, and it sounds like apartment complex REITs like the one you mentioned. That's got to be the reason for the optimism, I assume. Yeah.
Well, for sure. And I mean, also take it with a grain of salt, because these are some of the most beaten down stocks during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, when I mentioned EPR, they're still down. They're still roughly, less than half of what they were trading for before the pandemic, even after today. So a lot of these were really beaten down. And Avalon Bay, the apartment one, I'm not saying there's going to be no remote work trend that forces people, or not forces, but that prompts people to leave cities. But the stock's down 40% year to date, and the vacancy rate increased by 3%. So that kind of just seems like it's not balanced correctly.
Yeah, it doesn't. You're right. And I mean, it's always worth remembering too, when we see headlines like this, because I mean, this is a headline we woke up to this morning, all across the country. You could tell, I mean, there was plenty of excitement out there, because this is the news that you want to hear, right? This is not the magic bullet, so to speak, but this is definitely the news that you want to hear. It always strikes me too, and I'm not trying to take the glass half empty perspective here, but when you see this type of reaction, it's always worth remembering this isn't over, right? I mean, this marks a big step forward, but we're not through this yet. So, I mean, we still have a full winter here really to go through, right? And it feels like, let's try to temper everybody's expectations. Get questions throughout the morning on, should I be buying these stocks or selling these stocks? And it's like, you know what? Oftentimes for investors, it's better to maybe take news like this, digest it through the course of the day, give yourself some time to think about things, the implications here, because it really kind of feels like this is great news, but there's most certainly going to be another bad headline at some point here in the next week, 2 weeks, 1 month, whatever it may be. So it's always worth remembering, listen, this doesn't just mean everything is back to normal and everything is hunky-dory, right? I mean, this is good news. but we're not through this yet.
Yeah, I mean, don't throw off your mask and run out into the streets to play just yet. But having said that, this was definitely good news. And I'm sure Brian and Keith in the previous segment explained this better than I ever could. But this is going to take some time to really roll out, right?
Yeah.
At a minimum, Pfizer said they will be ready to submit for emergency approval by the end of this month if everything goes well. That's 2 weeks after they have all their participants have gone through the trial for 2 months, rather. After that, they're only going to make 50 million doses or so this year. So even assuming they get all 50 million of those into people's arms by the end of this year, that's still roughly 80% of the U.S. population that is not going to be vaccinated.
Right.
And then you have another few months. Figure sometime in mid-2021, anyone who really needs a COVID vaccine will have one. So, and that's if things go well from here on. But this is definitely a step in the right direction, and these companies desperately needed some light at the end of the tunnel.